Hi, we are going to read a story today about Horton. And Horton is an elephant. He has kind of big ears, but he is a very kind and gentle soul. So, I'm going to read a story to you about an adventure that Horton had. And he's had many. Horton hatches the egg by Dr. Seuss.
Say, this is Maisie, and I'm in the tree. And I'm tired and I'm bored. I've got kinks in my legs from sitting here day after day. It's work, this egg. It's so much work. How I hate it. I'd much rather be out playing. I'd like to take a vacation, fly for a rest. If I could only find someone who would sit on this nest. And then I would be free to fall away from this tree. And maybe I'll fly for that vacation or two.
Then who should come along but Horton? Horton passed by.
"Hello," said Maisie, "the laziest bird you ever did see.
Hey, you've got nothing to do, and I need a rest. Would you like to sit on an egg in my nest?"
"Oh," said Horton, "why of all the silly things? I haven't feathers. I don't even have wings. Me on an egg? Well, that doesn't even make sense. Your egg is so small, and ma'am, I'm very large. In fact, I'm immense." "Tut, don't worry," said Macy. "I know you're not small, but I'm not sure you can do it at all. No, I'm pretty sure you can. It'll be no trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're such a gentle and kind soul. Come, be a good fellow. I know you won't mind." "I can't," said Horton. "I can't." "Please," said Maisie. "I won't be gone long," she said. "I'll give you my word. I'll hurry right back. Why, I won't even be missed."
Very well, said Horton. You want a vacation? Go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful, and I mean what I say. Toodaloo, said Maisie, and she fluttered away. Said Horton. The first thing I need to do, let's see, I'm going to prop up this very thin tree and make it much stronger, as it has to be done, before I can get on it. You know I weigh close to a ton. Then carefully, very, very carefully, tenderly, gently, Horton, he crept up the tree and got on that nest where that little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. "Now that's that," he said, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And then he sat there all day. He kept that egg warm. He sat there all night through a terrible storm. It thundered, it lightened, it poured, it rumbled. "This isn't much fun," said Horton. The poor elephant thought, "I wish that Maisie, that silly old bird, I wish she'd get back, 'cause I'm cold here and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget." But Maisie, by this time, was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way out in Palm Beach, and in having such fun and such wonderful rest, she decided she'd never go back to that silly old nest. Not a good thing for Horton. So Horton kept sitting there day after day. He sat there all autumn, and the leaves blew away. He sat there all winter, when the snow and the sleet and icicles hung everywhere from him, from his trunk to his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with a sneeze, "I'll stay on this egg and I won't let it freeze." Excuse me. I meant what I said. I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful. 100%. So poor Horton. He sat there the whole winter through. And then came springtimes with new troubles. His friends gathered round and they shouted with glee, "Look at Horton, the elephant, up in a tree!" They taunted, they teased, they yelled, "How absurd! Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird!" They laughed and they laughed, and they all ran away. And Horton, he was so lonely. He sat on that egg and he continued to say, "I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant is faithful 100%. No matter what happens, that egg he would set." But poor Horton's troubles were far from ending. For a while, Horton sat there so faithful, so kind, and then a hunter came sneaking up softly behind. Horton heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a stare. Now rifles were aiming right straight to his heart. Did he run? No, he did not. Horton sat on that nest and he held his head high. He threw out his chest and he looked at the hunters, so much to say, "Shoot me if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. But the men didn't shoot. And much to Horton's surprise, they dropped their 3 guns and they looked with wide eyes. "Look!" they shouted. "Can you see such a thing? An elephant sitting on top of a tree. It's strange. It's amazing. It's wonderful, new. Don't shoot him. We'll catch him. That's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Well, he'll be terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money." And the first thing he knew, Horton was built up into a big wagon. The ropes were in the front and the pulleys dragged on. They dug up his tree and they put it inside. And Horton was so sad he practically cried. "We're off," said the men, and off they all went, with Horton unhappily 100%. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, 1,000 feet high. Then down the mountain, out down to the sea, went the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. And then out of the wagon, onto a ship, over the ocean. Oh, such a trip! Rolling and tumbling and splashing the spray, Horton said day after day, "I meant what I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. And then after bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, Horton found himself in New York. "All ashore," the men shouted, and down with a lurch was Horton the elephant as he sat on his perch. Tired and ready to leave, he could scarcely believe it when bump! Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Sold to the circus. So week after week they showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They showed him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Wickamana, Washington too, to Dayton, Ohio, to St. Paul, Minnesota, to Armour, South Dakota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota. and everyone, thousands of folks, flocked to see and laughed at an elephant up in a tree. Poor Horton grew sadder and sadder the further he went, but he said as he went, I meant what I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. Then one day, the circus happened to reach, can you believe it, in Palm Beach, and dwaddling along high up in the sky, who of all people should fly by but that crazy Maisie? That old good-for-nothing bird, that runaway Maisie, she still is on vacation and just as lazy. And spying the flags and the tents below, she sang, what fun! I think I'll go to the show. And she swooped down from the clouds and just flew in the opening to the tent and said, goodness gracious! I've seen you before. Poor Horton looked up and his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest ear-splitting squeaks from the egg he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a cracking, a wild alive scratching. My egg, shouted Horton. My egg, it's hatching. But it's my egg, said Maisie. She screamed when she heard the egg cracking. The work was all done. Now she wanted it back. It's my egg, she sputtered. You stole it from me. Get off, get off, get off of my nest and get out of here. Get out of my tree. Poor Horton backed down with a heavy heart. But that was the very instant the egg burst apart. And out of the pieces of red and white shell from the egg he'd sat on so long and so well came Horton the elephant could not believe when he saw something whiz by. It had ears and a tail and a trunk just like his. And people came shouting, what is this about? They looked and they stared, their eyes popping out. They all cheered and they hollered. They said, we've never seen anything like it before. My goodness, my gracious, my word. It's an elephant bird. And it should be like that. Because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said and he said what he meant. And they sent him home. Happy 100%. The end. Now remember, if you're like Horton and you commit to something, you got to carry through because he sat on that nest a very long time. And that Maisie bird, she was pretty lazy. Well, thanks for listening to our story.